Welcome to the center of the universe and the home of the 18-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts. This is the X's and Argos podcast with Ben Grant and JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos postgame reaction podcast brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. The final score, Toronto 38, Ottawa 31. They hang on, but just by the skin of their teeth as Ottawa is able to score 25 unanswered points in the fourth quarter and make close what was otherwise a blowout that seemed to me to really end mid-third quarter. That wasn't the case. Ottawa with the ball at the end, driving for a chance to tie up that game. Before we get into the recap, before JB gives you all his thoughts and analysis, and I do the same, let me tell you about Something in the Water Brewing. We were down there today, pre-game, got to say hi to a bunch of you. It was so great to see and catch up with listeners at Something in the Water Brewing. It is the perfect location to go to pre-game in Liberty Village. And of course, they've got Longboat Pale Ale, the beer that was made for fans of the Double Blue. And so make sure for the East semifinal, when you are back here at BMO Field 2 weeks from today, you stop by Something in the Water Brewing and try out Longboat Pale Ale, the beer made for fans of the Double Blue. And we'll see if we can drop by that one as well. All right, JB, just went absolutely off the wall in the fourth quarter. I, for one, am happy with how this game went, and I'll tell you why. I don't like taking a blowout and going into the East semifinal having just blown out the same team that you're matching up against. So I don't feel like that was the solution. I was nervous when it got to 28-0, and then when it was 38-6, I was like, I don't like this at all. I felt highly uncomfortable with it. I didn't like how I felt in the end either. But I think it's better to walk away from this feeling like, man, we got a couple of things we need to work on than it is walking away saying, oh, yeah, we can start thinking about Montreal.
Well, I learned a couple of things today. I learned that I did not hide my desire not to be on the podcast while sick. But I also learned, that Toronto is the better team. I think this is the best case scenario for Toronto. I know in some ways it feels like a loss, but coaches now have lots of tape, lots of things to keep their players' attention. Like no good comes from beating the hell out of a team that you have to play again in 2 weeks. So the fact that Ottawa fought their way back, now of course, God, they nearly blew it, but excuse me, I think this will turn out perfectly fine for Toronto in terms of allowing, look, they had a really good run, and had they won this game, 45-10, they would have been on the moon. They would have been 3 games in a row. They're playing fantastic. I think this gives coaches a chance to tighten up on specials, tighten up on things that got to be fixed. And, in the end, with the win, I think it's a good way to get a win.
Yeah, for me, the only time you actually want a blowout win, the only time you benefit from a blowout win is when your team is lacking confidence, when you are, struggling to feel good about what you're doing offensively, defensively, as a team, whatever it may be. And in this case, that wasn't what was going on with Toronto. This was a very confident team. Remember, they just went into Winnipeg last week and just brought it to, in a physical battle, they brought it to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, a place they had not won since 2015. And for them to be able to do that, go into there and make that, put on that kind of a display, that kind of a show, really said something about who they were. They were not lacking confidence coming to this one. And so for them to blow out the Redblacks today, I think, like as you said, it only opens the door for a letdown. And now I think they were tested. I think the coaches could say, hey, remember, we need to work. We're not perfect. We came within inches of blowing that. So yeah, I don't think that was a bad thing. But let's go back. Let's talk about that first half, that 28-0 lead that Toronto got out to. They looked pretty much as good as they have all season. We were saying on the TSN broadcast, we were saying that this looked like the offensive plan from the start that you wanted, and it looked like the defensive plan from the start that you wanted. Special teams, up and down a little bit today, but that first half was pretty picturesque in terms of how it was drawn up.
Yeah, I mean that's as good a first half as they have played. Certainly this year, it felt a bit like last year when they were sort of at the peak of their powers. They just came out and blew Ottawa off the field. I mean, it wasn't even close. They They were dominant in defense. They did whatever they wanted offensively. Kelly was at the top of his game. The team looked fantastic. I mean, my takeaway is the first half Argos are a Grey Cup champion level team.
No question.
And then you can talk about, okay, well, look, there were a lot of special problems in this game. I don't know why specials fell apart the way it did. But that's the takeaway, I think, from the coaches, that, we have that gear. All we have to do is get back to it.
And if the offense is playing as well as they did today, and if the defense is playing as well as they did today, then special teams becomes a different job. Instead of looking to put up points in the return game with Janneri and Grant, instead you're looking to secure the football, play safe, smart football. And on the other
100%.
side of it, you're looking just not to give up a home run play. And so, again, that was something that, maybe that's a lesson learned from this, because I know, like, Mickey Donovan, special teams coordinator for the Argos, is going to have a ton of film to be able to go over with his guys, because as great as they've been all season, and as great, we've sang the praises of Mickey Donovan all year. They've been wonderful since he got here in Toronto a few years ago. This was not probably a game he was excited about, but what he's got going for him is he's now got film to be able to bring to the guys. They can tweak some of these things. Better make these mistakes now when you were up by 32 points than to make them in the playoffs, in the East semifinal, or in a game that's a nail biter. So I think he's got, it's the best of both worlds in that way. He's now got film, he's got opportunity, he's got teaching moments. He can bring his guys up to speed and make sure that something like that does not happen again.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. The shifting of the special teams, right? Because now we're like, no, now your job is not to be the problem. We don't need you to turn the game around. We don't need field position. We don't need a big play from you. We need you to catch the ball, contain the ball. Just let us do our thing, because we are at the peak of our powers. And, it's important for special teams to be able to do both. To be able to go get it, but also, hey, know that our job right now is just to make sure the offense gets the ball back. We do not need to do anything. We do not need to fight yards. Just go down. Just go down safe and healthy. And on returns, the tackling was just really poor. Now, look, some of that is when you're up 28-0, it can be hard, even on specials, to dial in the intensity on tackles that is needed. And that's why big scores often disappear, because it just can be hard to simulate or to pretend that this tackle is really crucial. So, but I mean, it has to be fixed. You can't let another team score, 25 unanswered points. I don't care what the reasons are.
Yeah, no, that's you. This just, but you so rarely, like, when's the last time you saw one team outscore another 25-0 in a fourth quarter? It takes a special disaster for that kind of lead to be blown in the fourth quarter. And again, it's lucky, and maybe lucky is the wrong word. Toronto earned this win today in the first three quarters. They made it so that even with everything that went wrong, a fumbled kickoff return, a onside kick followed by a second recovered onside kick, and quick drives that ensued after that, all of the things that went wrong still were not enough for Ottawa to be able to come back. Think about, like, Drew Brown's stats at the end of the game are amazing. They look terrible. At the end of the third quarter, it was like, whoa, like these are some concerning numbers. Drew Brown finished with 400 yards passing and 4 touchdowns with 1 interception, 31 of 43. That was almost all in the fourth quarter where they got going. He was throwing 2-point conversions. It was a fourth quarter of a lifetime, but it was made possible by things that just don't usually happen. So think about we're talking about single digit percentage points in terms of the frequency with which onside kicks are recovered. They just are not recovered. You do not recover onside kicks in the CFL. It's really difficult to do one. To recover back-to-back onside kicks on top of having forced a fumble kickoff, these are all things that are really small percentage chances of occurring. They all happen in 3 straight possessions. That's just not going to happen again.
I would imagine that there was probably a reminder that beeped on quite a few guys' phones that there is a special teams meeting, if not tonight, tomorrow at 8 a.m. Onside team, I would imagine that will be an immediate and uncomfortable meeting for the onside hands team, and there'll probably be some changes made on that because that can't happen. I mean, that was just two muffed plays. It wasn't anything special they were doing. They just simply kicked the ball onside, and the hands team did not hands it.
And they did make a change on that third one. So Dejan Brissett was out there for the first two. The first one, he got pulled for Davaris Daniels on the third one. He's really tough to put all the blame on his shoulders there. That first kick was a thing of beauty. The second hop just took off. Brissett went up for it. It just ricocheted off his fingers. And the problem is, had he not touched it, it probably goes right to Coxie. He reaches up, he tries to get a hold of it, and it just grazes his fingers, goes over top of Coxie, and Ottawa is able to recover it right after that. The second one, Brissett was in position to catch, and right as he was trying to secure it, he was hit. That ball was knocked free. Ottawa recovered again. And for the third one, they put Davaris Daniels out there in Brissett's place. And it was actually Adeboboye who recovered it, which is weird because that wasn't his job. Adeboboye was out there more as a blocker. Like, he's out there as a first line defender who's supposed to take on the charge so that Davaris can come in behind and secure the football. But Adeboboye saw it's going right to me. If I don't get this, this might bounce at Davaris's feet. He secures the football and goes down. And, that's almost all she wrote, although it would turn out not to quite be all she wrote at that point. But do you question why Ottawa would change up that third onside kick? Because we were talking about that on the broadcast where we saw those first two were perfect. You could not kick an onside kick better than those first two. That second hop, taking off wildly into the air, is exactly what you want. Why not do that a third time? Why preach it?
I think you're overthinking it. I think you overthink it. It's like, you see coaches sometimes, you'll run two plays in a row, and then in the third play they run something totally different. Like, just keep running that third play till they show they can stop it. I would not be like, oh, they know how to stop it now in the 2 minutes since we did it. Like, no, I would keep doing that kick until they show you that that they have some solution. Because I assure you, there wasn't a grand solution cooked up on the sideline to prevent that kick. Yeah, that was a weird call. I think that's just one of those overthinking things. If I just do it again, that's not very fancy, as opposed to what is more likely to work.
And I do think kicking an onside kick was the right decision there. I briefly questioned it. We sort of went back and forth on this. Like, do you have to onside kick? Because they didn't have to. Like, remember, Ottawa got the ball back with, 30 seconds left when they got the ball back.
Yeah.
Needing a touchdown. Now, they were at their 12-yard line. The thinking there is, if you don't onside kick, you kick it away. Toronto's got their hands team out there, so they're not going to mount much of a return. Maybe Toronto ends up at their 15 or 20-yard line, and now that means you get the ball, same 30 seconds left, but now you're near midfield instead of at your own 12-yard line. But
yeah,
the reason I think it's still right to onside kick is that you have the extra chance of recovering the football, so you factor that into it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of those like debates where you can't. I don't think you can definitively say which is better. I would have leaned towards kicking deep. I think, much like hitting craps, okay, yes, you just did 2 onside kicks. I don't even know what the chances of doing 3 onside kicks. Like,
it's like
statistically
0.001%.
Yeah, so I think I would take my 2 to the bank and kick it deep. That would have been my call, but I can't disagree with the third shot at it, but I don't think that was the right call.
We're getting off here, and I'm taking us to dangerous places, but the way I look at this philosophically is, by the time you've already done the 2, you're not talking about what are the odds of 3 in a row. You're just talking about what are the odds right now that we recover an onside kick, and so you onside kick it. You don't factor in the fact that the last 2 have worked because they've already happened. They're gone and done.
The gambler's fallacy.
Well, no, this is a little bit more Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, I suppose. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. A Tom Stoppard reference, which you probably didn't think you were going to get on your post-game reaction X's and Argos podcast.
It's true. Every time you flip the coin, there is an equal chance it will be heads.
Right. But it's
that's
different
not
if you
always
say
the
it
case.
beforehand and you say, hey, I'm going to flip 38 heads in a row, then yes, the odds are slim with that. But once 38 have been flipped, that next one is a 50-50. All right, let's get
Well,
into
it
some
is.
more.
It is, and it isn't.
No, it is. Every individual time you flip
No.
it, it's 50-50. But we're not going to, let's not make this a podcast about math or
Yeah.
probability because I don't think we'll do well in that as well as we would breaking down
No.
the football game. Let's talk about let's start with the Toronto offense. So let's go back to when they had the ball, which was the first three quarters. Did they have what, like two drives in that fourth quarter? Let's worry about those first three quarters where things were cooking. I thought there were multiple occasions where Chad Kelly had options to run and maybe run for a long way. And he chose to throw the ball downfield. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Do you want to see Chad Kelly tuck the ball and run more, or do you like the fact that he's looking downfield for that big strike?
Yeah, I think you have to punish teams, much like a light box. You have to punish teams for dropping guys in the pass coverage. I thought he did have a couple of decent runs. I think you have to force people to put a guy in to try and set an edge and get that guy out of coverage. And when they do, yes, I would say if teams are going to try and drop, seven guys in the coverage, you absolutely should be burning them for 10 yards every single time on the edge.
Yeah, he had a couple opportunities. One specifically when it was a missed pass to Tavares Daniels, which could have really blown this game open. And we had two opportunities like that when the score was, I think it was already 28-0 at that point. And they ran the flea flicker that just missed hitting. And then they ran a seam route to Tavares where Chad Kelly was rolling to his left. He just missed Tavares Daniels, overthrowing him by about a foot. But had Chad Kelly just decided, I'm going to attack and run, he might have gone for 30 or 40 yards. There was nobody. It just felt like all day today, the way that the Redblacks were playing the Argos, they had the pass rush, and then everybody else was well back of the line of scrimmage. And so had Chad Kelly wanted to step up and really cause problems for the Redblacks defense, I think there was room there to do that. And maybe that's something that you consider as not part of your game plan, but certainly as a possible adjustment. If Ottawa plays Toronto the same way 2 weeks from now, maybe you say to Chad Kelly, like, hey, when that starts opening up and you slip through that B gap and step up into the pocket, go. That's fine. Go, slide, take the first down, and instead of putting the ball downfield. But I don't want to be hard on him for that because philosophically, I like a quarterback that's thinking pass first, even when the run is there. I think it's far easier to dial them back that way than it is for quarterbacks whose instincts are always to run. I don't like that nearly as much. So Chad Kelly, I'm just looking at some of these stats are just bananas. I wish my stats sheet were divided by quarter because I think that would be really interesting. But he finishes with 80% completion, 21 of 26, and two of those passes were, like, as I said, inches from being touchdowns. What did you think of the play call on the flea flicker up 28-0, Toronto deep in their own end?
Right. I thought that I was kind of lulled into a sort of zone watching how effective Toronto was. And, it seemed like, that was going to be it for Ottawa. But that was karmically not football god friendly. I think one must always be penitent in the face of supernatural, and one should not flea flick while winning 28-0. I think both of those are true statements.
So for our second straight show, you were bringing up the football gods into the discussion. I feel like that is, I think this earns you up.
It was a direct affront to the gods, and we saw what happened.
Football does not work this way. So what I saw happening was I liked it. I applaud the play call because what I was worried about. God. No, it's the right thing to do. And let me tell you why. Because you're up 28-0. Because here's the thing. 28 points weren't going to be enough. That's not enough. And it wasn't. Redblacks scored 31. You can't sit, even though it's 28-0, you cannot sit on that. And I'm not saying that you just throw the ball to Ottawa defenders. That's not the plan. But you can't just run the football and play conservative offense from that point on. It was still like early second quarter. It was like early to mid second quarter. That's not the time to take your foot off the gas. And they had it. They caught Ottawa completely selling out on the run. It was a beautiful play call. It worked. It just, the throw wasn't there. And again, how often does Chad Kelly miss deep balls? Pretty infrequently. And he had Mackay Polk streaking down the field, no defender near him. That goes all the way for a touchdown if that connects. And at that point, it would have been 35-0. Now it is game over. Now that is enough points. You've got enough there with Ottawa still not on the scoreboard. So for me, I love it. You keep running your game plan. You keep firing the ball downfield, and you don't start sitting on that lead until you get well into the second half. So I like it. I thought it was the right call. They didn't get away from their plan. They didn't get away from passing the football. In terms of decisions, I think Chad Kelly was smart. 80% completions, 81% completion. A couple of times where he could have forced it. Once where he ended up taking the sack, and it looked like he was thinking he should even throw it away, but he's like, no, I don't want to risk putting that ball on the floor. He tucked it in. I didn't like how many hits he took, though, today. Did you feel like Ottawa may have gotten away with a couple? Because I think Chad Kelly certainly felt that. There was one play in particular, he got the ball off and then appeared to be hit in the face. He went to the ground holding either his nose or his eyes, and he was yelling at Dinwiddie. He's like, challenge that. I got hit in the face. And Dinwiddie held onto his flag because he knows how valuable that flag is late in games, the challenge flag. He didn't challenge that. Toronto got a first down on the play anyway.
He had a rule technicality he was looking for later in the second half.
Yeah, some sort of obscure thing to challenge late in the second half. But that led to more opportunities to hit Kelly because they didn't throw a flag on that one. A few plays later, Kelly got hit again. Looked like it was a little bit late. No flag comes out, and so now as Ottawa, you're thinking, hey, we can take some shots here. I hate that kind of precedent when it's set and you're not calling Ottawa players for hitting the quarterback.
No, I agree. I thought that it was a little loose around penalties. It was not. There were only 4 penalties called in the whole game, which matches up with my feeling. It felt like it didn't feel out of control, but it definitely felt like they were letting them play. I mean, it was, it had a really nice flow to it, and 4 penalties in total is very low.
Which I like philosophically. I'm not asking for more penalties. I
sure,
like
but
that
you
there
have
were
to.
only 4 penalties, but you got to protect quarterbacks.
Actually,
that's a league mandate. That's what they're trying to do.
Exactly. It goes back to my thing I was going to rage about the other day, but didn't. When that idiot from Winnipeg hit Kelly. Like for me, when he was, he came unabated and two-handed him to the ground. To me, that's an automatic game ejection. Period. I don't want to hear any stories about, oh gosh, I didn't know. Like, get out of here. We can't have losers like that touching quarterbacks. The whole league is about the quarterback. If you don't have a quarterback, your team is unwatchable. Ask any team who's had a quarterback. Like, it's just, this is an entertainment sport. And I think much like hockey and goalies, quarterbacks should be absolutely protected, and players should be thrown out of the game for doing things that affect them. And there should have been a penalty there. I think the league should do more to protect quarterbacks. People are like, oh, they should just do two-hand touch. Like, yes, they should be two-hand touch. The league is unwatchable without good quarterbacks. It's like watching, punting practice. You have to have good quarterbacks for this league to be exciting, and they have to be protected because there is nobody behind them. Who's going to come in and play this game if Kelly gets hurt? There's nobody waiting behind him. So I do feel really strongly that the league has not protected quarterbacks enough. I know people moan and groan, but they should, they should shut up.
And I will defend Winnipeg only in that, because I do think that that should have been a penalty for the late hit on Kelly last week. And I have no problem with players being ejected in those situations. I thought he handled it really well post game. He didn't make excuses. He didn't say, you know what, I couldn't hear, I didn't know. He just was like, yeah, I got to know better. I can't touch the quarterback. And
he can't be allowed to try to complain
about it. So I just, because we so often we see players make excuses or say, make things up.
What if Kelly gets a concussion there? Am I going to watch that idiot, that defensive lineman, throw the ball? Like, no, I don't want to watch him. Nobody does. He should have to play quarterback. for the rest of the game. And, like nobody wants to see him. It's important for him and the league to understand that most of the players in the league, nobody has any interest in. So if you're in the entertainment business, you better damn well protect the people want to see.
And I think Chad Kelly certainly felt that today when he was lying on the ground for the third straight drive. And he was
Yeah.
looking around at the officials saying, where's the flag? But at the same time, I do like the lack of flags. I thought the game had pace to it. It had momentum to it. It's not like some games we've seen where it just felt like every play there was a flag. So I do
No, it was
tip
great.
my hat to the crew for that.
Yeah, I thought it was not a chippy game. I just think they could do a little more to protect Chad. I know it's hard sometimes because when quarterbacks call for help a lot, a referee's natural reaction is to not help them. But that's where the league has to step in and be like, look, even if somebody is making a big deal all the time, you've got to protect them.
Demonte Coxey got back involved. Brissett was involved. This was good to see. Like some guys that we haven't heard too much from lately. Coxey hasn't had a big game for a while. He had that huge catch down the sideline that went for 31 yards. Ended up with 5 catches for 80 on the day. Brissett with his biggest game of the season, 5 targets, 5 catches, 67 yards, 2 touchdowns on that. And then Makai Polk, who has been hot, he's been sort of the consistent factor the last few weeks. He was a little hit and miss in terms of receptions and targets, 6 targets, 3 catches, 103 yards, 1 touchdown. But that could have been huge. There were 2 plays where Polk really could have gone, including that flea flicker, and that puts him up into like maybe the 170s, 2 touchdowns, who knows. But yeah, Toronto receivers really doing it all. And one guy that I want to shout out because I think he may have gone unnoticed today if you were watching the game on TV, especially. Kevin Mittal was actually in quite a bit today. It looked like he was taking a lot of snaps. He didn't have a target. They didn't go his way. But I like the fact that they're working him into the field more. He had a couple key blocks. They used him as a tight end on one play, on a running play. I think the more ways you can find to use Kevin Mittal, the better off you're going to be next year when he's going to be looked at as a starting receiver. I think they're looking his way for sure, because there's no way you're going to be able to bring back all of the guys that are currently getting that time in Neal and Ungerer and Sindani and Brissett. And like, they're just not going to have like 6 starting caliber Canadian receivers next year. So yeah, he's going to be one of those guys that has to get it done. I love that they're working him in as much as they were. Before we switch to the defensive side of the ball, they didn't get away from the run like the last time Toronto played Ottawa. Instead, Kadeem Carey ends up with 14 carries. Not the same effectiveness we've seen from him. He's 55 yards, about 4 yards a carry, had the touchdown in there. But I thought Ottawa did a much better job keeping him contained than we've seen teams do over the last few weeks. What did you make of Kadeem Carey's day on the ground?
Yeah, Ottawa is an elite run defense team. I thought that would be a problem. I think they did exactly what they do. I mean, they don't have many things they do that are particularly impressive. But their run defense definitely is. So, that made sense to me.
And Carey, meanwhile, climbing the ladder in terms of season high rushing yards for Argos players. I think he's now 7th on the list all time for Argos in a season, which is pretty impressive. I don't know if he plays next week. That's something maybe we can talk about to end the pod, but maybe think about guys that maybe you don't have them go. The game next week is essentially a bye. This is what you've earned in this win today. You've earned a week that doesn't matter. There's now nothing Ottawa can do to catch Toronto. Home field in the East semifinal is wrapped up. So yeah, maybe he's one of those guys you rest. And so a great season from Kadeem Carey. He's got that place in the Argos record book now. And he worked really hard for those 55 yards. Let's talk about the one thing that didn't go right in that first half for the Argos offense. Have they found a solution for 3rd and short? What do you make of those short yardage struggles?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there were people say, I told you, but we'll see. We'll see. Ottawa was not particularly good at stopping the 3rd and short. Montreal is better. We'll see.
It made me nervous when 1st and goal from the 1. After that, it was the Makai Polk pass, a pass to Coxey. They get down to the 1 yard line. first and goal from the one, and they're spread in shotgun. And I'm like, well, this is different. They're not going with the sneak that they went with last time. And they ran Carey on the first one, I believe. It got stuffed. The second one, they ran Kelly. That got stuffed. And now it's third down and goal from the one. If that one didn't get in, A, maybe this game goes differently. B, maybe you've got a whole new strategy going forward. They did punch it in. That changed maybe the confidence level they had going forward. The third and shorts from then on were all converted.
It's true. I didn't love the first two calls. Carey got it done, and it was better, but it is a concern. I think that Montreal's line is bigger than Ottawa's. It was okay. I mean, what can you say? It went fine today. So
the other sneaks, they went fast. Like, that's to me the key. Like, I don't think Toronto's very good at short yardage. I don't think they're very good at quarterback sneaks. And so they are good at quarterback sneaks. They're really good at quarterback sneaks when you keep the base defense on the field. Where they struggle is when there's time, and in this case, Ottawa, when they get a chance to sub in like they did after that Coxie catch, and they brought in their heavies, that's when it gets more difficult. All of the other third and shorts, even one that was at their own 20-yard line, they were converted because Chad got the guys to the line quickly, and they were left in some cases with their dime defense out there. That's fine. Like this, because remember, for the offense, it's the same 5 O-linemen that are spread across the field. It's the same 5 guys, no matter which defense is on the field, whether it's the goal line defense or whether it's your base defense, it's the same 5 O-linemen. And those same 5 O-linemen are obviously going to do better against your pass rush unit than they are against the goal line unit that comes in. And so the key there is Chad Kelly and Coach Dinwiddie, as soon as you realize you're in a situation where it's either 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, immediately get your guys to the line. Don't let the other team sub. And if they start to send guys in, snap that ball, get that offside penalty, get that too many men on the field penalty, whichever it's going to be.
100%. It's a great adaptation.
Let's talk about the defense. Spectacular in the first half. I don't even know if I blame them that much in the second half. What do you look at this as a story of two halves? Like, if you're the co-defensive coordinators for the Argos, are you happy? Are you angry? Like, how do you even feel?
Well, I mean, for sure in the second half, you would be trying to be more vanilla, because you're going to play again, so you're not going to empty your playbook. So you're going to get into junk. I mean, that's where junkyards come from. So it didn't surprise me they were able to put up junkyard. I mean, the reality is you just can't have junkyards plus 2 onside kicks plus a fumble kick return. Like, specials have to hold their water. But defensively, yeah, I mean, they were able to move down the field. That's the nature, I think, of having a lead. And it can be hard to turn that back on. You know what I mean? Like, if you kind of turn the engine off, and it can be hard for a defense then suddenly to dial back in and be able to play tight coverage. So I can't really bang the defense for that because, they kind of geared down and they were sort of let down by their special teams. I thought the first half, the defense looked great. I thought the defensive line got after the quarterback in that second half when it really needed to. But yeah, I just look at the first half and I think it looked good. They were all over Ottawa. Ottawa couldn't move the ball, couldn't run the ball. I think that's the takeaway, and that's what I'm looking forward to when they meet up again.
There was a stretch there, like the defense was exhausted at the end of this game. On that last play, the sort of hook and ladder Stanford band play where Ottawa was just desperately trying to make, which actually looked pretty well executed by Ottawa. There were moments of nervousness in that.
It did. I thought that Ottawa, I thought the guys that they lateral to, much like a rugby team learning how to play rugby, had they accelerated, I think Toronto's in danger.
Yeah, I do too.
But they just kind of caught it and looked for the next guy to pass it to, which I'm all too familiar with.
Yeah. If they had pushed downfield, that might have been a different result, but I think still a long shot. But that was a good play. But at the end, when the final whistle went, 0's on the clock, the Toronto defense, like half of that unit just collapsed to the ground. because they had been on the field for like an hour of real time in that fourth quarter. It was just so many defensive plays. They never got a break. Those guys have been out there and they're running go routes and covering go routes, and it was just nonstop, like again and again and again. They were physically beat. The offense took a total of 8 snaps in that fourth quarter, a quarter where I haven't counted up Ottawa's, but I'm sure they must have been around 25 or so in that fourth quarter, if not more. It was just an unreal series of events that led to Ottawa not relinquishing the football, and that Toronto defense was gassed at the end of that.
Yeah, and not only that, but Ottawa's basically starting at the 50. It was like a jamboree where Ottawa just got, okay, Ottawa, you get 10 tries from the 50. Because like every time you turn around, Ottawa had it again at the 50, whether it was a punt return where guys were not wrapping up because they were dead tired. Gaps were there, the 2 onsides, the fumble. It was a bloody calamity.
And how about that? Like, and how big a play is it now in retrospect? That pick by Tavares McFadden at like the Toronto 2-yard line, that was one of the nicest interceptions I have seen this season. Tavares made a heck of a play, not only to be able to rip the ball out of Martiner's hands and I don't even know, like, why did Coach Dice challenge that play? I have no clue. There was clearly no pass interference. But he ripped that ball out of his hands and kept his feet in, went to ground at the Argo 2-yard line. But if that play goes differently, maybe we're having a different conversation right now. I don't know.
Yeah, the Ottawa, what they chose to challenge and what they didn't were odd tonight.
And then in terms of the rest of the defense, I don't really blame them for what went down in the fourth. Like you said, they're playing vanilla. Where you really can judge that defense is in the first half, and I thought they were spectacular. They were not allowing Ottawa to run. Ottawa, and here's a stat for you that will sort of tell you what happened here. Ottawa had 400 yards passing. You know what their total net offense was? 395 yards. So that tells you how well their running game was going. And Toronto, of course, getting 3 sacks in there too. Could have been more. They've caused a fumble. Drew Brown letting go of that football. It was bouncing around. Wyndham McManus recovered it. I thought he played a really nice game. I thought there were a lot of really good contributors on that defense. It'll be forgotten about because they put up, Ottawa put up 31 points in the end. But I really do feel like the defense played good football until this whole game turned into a clown show at the end. And at which point, I don't know. It's hard to really point the finger at the defense.
Special teams meltdown, and I have full confidence that coach will tear the paint off the wall and they'll have it all tightened up.
Yeah, no, I do too. These aren't concerns that I have going forward. That's the difference between, the offense having a bad game, the defense having a bad game. This is an uncharacteristically poor game for that special teams unit at the end with the fumble, the 2 missed onside kicks. It's just not going to happen again. I have full faith in special teams coordinator Mickey Donovan. I have faith in the unit. I have faith in I have faith in Grant not coughing up the football again. I just think they got it out of their system today. And as I said off the top, better today than in 2 weeks' time when these Redblacks are back here at BMO Field. Before we wrap things up, let's go into our players of the game and our plays of the game. And maybe just before we get to that, injury updates, we don't have too much. Dejon Allen went down with an injury. He was replaced by Landon Rice. I didn't see that play happen. And what I think is good is that Allen stayed in gear. He was in uniform even at the end of the game. He didn't have his helmet with him, but he had everything else going on. And so whatever it is, I don't get the feeling, even though I know nothing, I don't get the feeling this is something where we don't see him out there in 2 weeks' time. I think for sure he'll get the rest next week, and then you bring him back with whatever that might be. I don't know. Who knows? It could be any range of injuries. But the fact that he was still in his equipment, I thought was very promising. And then Dylan Giffen went down. He stayed in, though, and that made for something interesting because suddenly Jared Brinkman had to throw on that number 69 jersey in case they needed him to run out there as the extra offensive lineman. The Argos love dressing 7 offensive linemen. I love it, too. I think that's the correct way to do things. But since they lost Isaiah Cage, they've been going with 6 men on that offensive line, and Landon Rice was the only extra guy dressed. So that's why Brinkman suddenly had to throw on that number 69 jersey in case he needed to come out there. And I think it happened when Dylan Giffen went down with the injury. I think that's when they threw that on him. And obviously, you know how tough those jerseys are to get on and off big men. They weren't going to take it off once Giffa was okay. They're just, you're going to play with number 69 the remainder of the game, which he did. So good that we didn't need to see Brinkman out there on the line, but that makes me nervous going forward. We want to make sure Dejan Allen's okay. He's a key piece to this Argos team. Any other injuries that you caught? I saw Robbie Smith looked like he banged up his hand a little bit, but that didn't keep him out of play.
Nothing serious that I noticed.
Yeah, so hopefully that's the case. Sometimes things don't appear until later, but it looked like they got out of here relatively unscathed, maybe with the exception of that Dejan Allen injury. We'll have to see what that is going forward. All right, players of the game, JB. I'll start things off, and honestly, this is a really tough one for me. I don't know exactly where to go with it. I want to shout out Chad Kelly. I would probably give it to him if it weren't for the missed flea flicker, the missed wide open Tavares Daniels. I think those two plays just are enough to keep him from getting the player of the game from me on this one, although he did have a heck of a game. I think I'm instead going to go to Coxie, which is a little bit off the board. I know he wasn't Toronto's leading receiver. He didn't have any touchdowns today. I thought he made some very clutch plays to keep drives going. He had that deep ball that went out at the one that turned into a touchdown. He converted multiple second and long situations. He fought for extra yards. He showed a little bit. We've seen that strength from him where he basically shoves defenders to the ground. He showed some of that. He showed some fancy footwork as well. And so this is your traditional role as the hipster pick. I'm going a bit off the board, and I'm giving it to DeMonte Coxie today. Where are you going with your player of the game?
Well, I thought there were a couple of places that defensively Hawley flashed early and looked great. And look, D'Angelo led the team in tackles. He had 6 and then 2 special teams on top of that. And he's been a real contributor. I think every game he solidifies his place as a starting CFLer. So I liked him. I don't think it quite met player of the game. For me, I have to give it to Chad Kelly. I mean, Chad Kelly threw 3, ran in for 1. He looked like the best player in the league tonight.
Yeah, no, and I have no problem with that. As I said, I thought, had he not, maybe as a offensive coordinator, not hitting your flea flicker.
It again.
Well, I think just not hitting the flea flicker stuck with me too much. That was a dagger. It was a dagger moment. If they hit that flea flicker, it's over.
A flea flicker of player of the game choices.
And what is your player of the game, or do you want me to do mine first?
I can go first. For me, the play of the game was the late sack. I thought it took all the gas. Now, would you have been more aggressive midfield in terms of locking in that win?
Would have been more aggressive defensively?
They were no, offensively when Toronto had the ball, it was like run, punt. They were sort of very, very kind of hyper conservative midfield.
They were.
It was
really just one drive, because the Cam Dukes drive, I think, at that point, that game was still out of reach. I think you do just run, punt. That's fine. That last possession, it wasn't out of reach
the last possession. Would you go for? Don't give Ottawa the ball back.
That was Chad Kelly back in there. I might have taken a chance a little bit, but I think you're also thinking man, I just don't want to get my quarterback hit again. Where I would have been more aggressive is I probably would have tried to kick a field goal. So that would have been a 47-yarder for Haralahu. And so I think if there's a moment to have been aggressive there, I think instead of punting the ball, now it worked out and Ottawa was down at the 12, but I think if you kick that field goal, it's a 10-point lead. The game's done now. It's over. That's it. And you're putting one of your best players in Haralahu on the field for a kick he can make. But I get not kicking it there.
What about going for the Rouge?
No, I just don't like to make it an 8-point game. No, I don't like that because it's still one score and now they're on the 40 instead of the 12.
Yeah, I can live with that. I would have gone for it. I thought they were a little too conservative midfield. I don't give Ottawa the ball back. Let's put this thing in the dirt. For me, the Parrish sack, I thought it brought an end emotionally to any chance Ottawa had. I know they had the rugby plays at the end there, but I thought that felt like the end of the game to me.
Yeah, I see that. And I think I'll give my play of the game to Tavares McFadden on that pick that I talked about earlier. I just thought it was such a beautiful play. And if that play goes differently, who knows how this game ends. So Martner was open. He got in behind T, but T made a great recovery. And what he did so well is as he's recovering, he's running full speed after Martner. He got his head around like the whole way. He's running for about 15 yards with his head around, and he became the receiver. He just started tracking the football. He played it so well. And it's funny, we were talking in the broadcast about how many picks Tavares could have had this season because there's a bunch that he dropped that he almost always catches. And doesn't he go out and catch the toughest one that he's had all season? He makes the play on that interception. And for me, I'm going to give Tavares McFadden my play of the game there. I think that you go back and look, and that was a pretty key moment. Well, we're set to do this thing all again, JB. Before we sign off, who are you resting next week in Edmonton? This is not a bye week, but I think the Argos can, as much as you're allowed to with salary cap constraints, you're going to treat this as much as you can as a bye. I don't think there's any way we see Chad Kelly play next week. I don't think there's any way we see Kadeem Carey or Dejon Allen play next week. Who else are you maybe trying to get a rest day for?
I don't know necessarily on Chad Kelly. I don't agree on the Chad Kelly unless he's banged up.
Well, he took a lot of hits today.
Yeah, I know, but it's okay. I think some reps would, I wouldn't mind him playing the first quarter. But for sure, Carey. For sure, McManus. Whatever you can get away with on the offensive line, which obviously will speak to, if you're going to rest a couple of guys on that line, obviously that probably pushes the quarterback off. But, I mean, the guys are getting healthy. I mean, I think we're in decent shape right now. Like for me, probably just the guys on the line, the offensive line you can rest, and the running back. I don't think anybody else really jumps out. I mean, I think one of the nice things about the team is that it's in decent, healthy shape. I don't think they need a full boat rest period. I would kind of play a half and then kind of let the 2s and 3s play.
Well, that will just about do it for us on this post-game reaction episode of the X's and Argos podcast. 38-31 is the final score. Toronto over the Ottawa Redblacks. They wrap up second place in the East Division, and they will be hosting a playoff game against these same Redblacks 2 weeks from now with a game in Edmonton in between them. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.
Go, Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe.